it all works out, and often better than you think that it's going to be. Like, if you had told me that my life now, it was going to be what it is when I was 17 and pregnant, I would have been like, yeah, you're off your rocker. Like,
yeah, there's no way.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I knew I could do it, but it's so much better than what I could have ever imagined.
Welcome to The Standard. My name's Rhett Weaver. The idea behind this project is where average people have raised their standards. We're going to show you the blueprint. Let's do this.
Welcome to another episode of The Standard. I'm your host, Rhett Weaver. I'm excited. I'm excited about all of them.
Yeah,
but
you
I'm
say
like
that every time.
But I'm like, I've got a love-hate with you, Katie.
Okay.
And we just got to get this like out of the way.
I'm
right?
ready.
Here's my love-hate.
I know
Before
exactly
we dive
what it is.
into like everything that you do and like what you're successful at, here's my love-hate. My wife spends a lot of money with you.
I knew that was coming.
And it always seems like there's a buy one, get one free. It always seems like there's some type of special. And it's always the classic like, hey, honey, here's how much I'm saving you, right? But then it's not like, I'm not saving anything, Katie. Don't get me wrong. She looks gorgeous. She's beautiful.
She's
and
always
that's
looked
why
gorgeous.
I love you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I definitely dislike you at times because it seems like there's always something, Katie.
I feel that, and I knew exactly where that was coming because I feel like Keely's told me that before. She's like, I had to text Rhett and tell him that I was sending you money, and like just to not ask any questions, I'm paying Katie, and I'm like,
I feel like that's like genuinely why she has her secret Venmo stash.
that's why a lot of my clients have secret Venmo stashes.
There it is.
Secret cash stashes.
I
Like,
know.
it's like this guilt to spend money on yourself that, I mean, I don't say anything about it. You pay me however you want to pay me. But also, I don't want people to feel guilty about it. Yeah. And I know you don't ever make her feel guilty about it.
I never do.
Like, you joke around saying, I hate Katie.
Correct.
Because you give her lots of money.
Yep.
But you are also probably happy that you can, like, that she's doing that for herself.
Yeah.
And she feels confident enough to come to you and say, hey, I got my lips done, or I did some Botox today, and this is what I'm doing for myself.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Katie. I play golf and it's an expensive hobby. You think I'm going to tell her no?
Yeah, you have to you can't compare, you know. But
what I've learned really early in my marriage is it's like I will never tell her no. Because when I want to do something, guess what she can't do? She just can't tell me no.
she can't tell you no back.
You know what I'm saying?
It's perfect, but not like all people are that way. And so... yeah, I think that some people might actually really hate me. Some husbands. I'm glad that it's like kind of a joke with you.
Yeah, it's always a joke with me. No, I'm excited to have you on. Obviously, you're doing a lot of stuff. You know, you grew up in my hood. We all went to Davis High, you know, the whole thing. But, you know, one thing that I enjoy or, you know, what I talk about a lot on the podcast is I really want to genuinely know, like, where did you grow up? What was that like? You know, like you going through elementary, junior high, high school, like give me all the details of, you know, kind of how you felt growing up kind of in the Kaysville Davis community, you know, inside of this community, I should say.
Man, like, let me go back to my childhood.
Yeah.
So yeah, my parents, live in Farmington still. They always have. We moved there when I was like 1. So they have the same house, same neighborhood that they've always been in.
Yep.
So when I drive back up there, it's just like I'm already going down memory lane all the time. I'm like, oh, who lives here now and all of that. But I mean, I genuinely loved growing up in Farmington. It's so different than it was, you know, 20 years ago even, 10 years ago even. But I think like all in all, it's just like the community and the people, like everyone's just kind.
Yeah.
And, you know, like your neighbors have your back. If your kids, like, I mean, now we moved back to Farmington and it's just the same, but like better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to elementary school, junior high, and high school all in Farmington, Kaysville area.
Which made it easy. Kind of growing up, like, what did you want to do in life?
I mean, it changed, you know, like when you're really little, you're like, oh, I'm going to be a singer and, and all this stuff. But always like from as young as I can remember, like truly like knowing what a career was,
Yeah.
you know, not just like
Yeah.
this fantasy thing. It was always in the medical field.
Yeah.
So doctor, surgeon, I wanted to be a brain surgeon for a really long time.
Awesome.
So that stayed consistent. I did like dental hygiene. I was thinking about dental hygiene for a little while. I did dental assisting at the DATC until I realized that I don't like teeth that much and mouths. And then I was like, never mind. But yeah, like I had like a little mini, not surgery, but I had a mole excised from my arm, and I was probably 8. And I remember like sitting and watching it.
Yeah.
And they just numbed me up, and I sat and I watched it happen the entire time.
Yeah.
And my mom's in the corner, like, like not being able to like watch it all, like feeling nauseous. And we left that appointment, and my mom's like, "You're gonna be a doctor or something," like, because I was asking questions. I was like, "This is sick! Like, I love this."
Yeah.
And so from then on, it was like very clear, like, yeah, you're gonna do something in medicine. Like, that's just what's interesting.
And does that sound like, was anybody around you at all, like in your childhood, like had anything to do with that?
No.
No.
My mom
That's awesome.
is a teacher.
Yeah.
And my dad's an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
Like, so definitely more like my dad, more like science brain. My mom's very creative.
Yep.
My sister's definitely more like her. She's an educator, works very hard, but it's just so different.
Yep.
But none of, like, my sister has her PhD in English, and my brother's still in college. And so literally I knew no path to like medicine. It was all very,
That's awesome.
like, out of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah.
No grandparents. No, I'm trying to think. I have like one cousin who is in medicine, but nothing like.
Yeah.
And she's like married into the family.
That's hilarious.
So I'm like really no one.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where
I think that's
from.
awesome. Because like for me, that I could care less about that stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Most doctors are like, oh yeah, my dad's a doctor. And
Yep.
I'm not a doctor.
Kind of down the family bloodline.
But kind of nurses are the same way. Like a lot of nurses that I was in nursing school with are like, yeah, my mom went to nursing school like 20 years ago. Now it's my turn. I'm like, oh, my mom's a teacher. Like I don't know anything about this.
Hilarious.
So
no, that's good
kind
stuff.
of out of nowhere, but just what I enjoyed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what was it like growing up? Like, were you into dance, sports? Were you doing kind of all that stuff? Like, what did you enjoy doing kind of growing up?
So I danced, and then I played competitive soccer.
Cool.
And I did that for a long time. It was funny, when I was really young, I was super shy. Like, hide behind my mom at the grocery store when someone would come say hi to us, shy. Like, so shy.
Yeah.
And then I don't know at what age, I don't even know if my mom knows at what age, it just flipped. But the very first soccer game and like soccer team I played for, I was probably in like first or second grade, and I would run off the field if the ball would come to me.
Hilarious.
Like, terrified. And my mom's like, what are you doing? Get out there. And I would be like, I don't want people to look at me. And my mom's like,
really?
I'm like, what if I missed the ball? Like, I was just so self-conscious and shy. And then I have no idea what changed. But then all of a sudden, like a few years went by, I got into dance and I was dancing. And then I told my mom I wanted to try soccer again. And she was like, are you sure? Like, you ran off the field crying last time. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I was in, I think like 4th grade, and just got on like a little city team.
Yep.
Started playing again, and then got like scouted to try out for a competition team from those just like city teams, like coaches kind of come to them. And I mean, I would score like all the goals on the team. So, but it was just completely different. Like I would stay out on the field and actually play.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So yeah, then I played soccer competitively up until high school. And then you kind of have to pick a route.
Yep.
So I was in junior high, I was dancing. I was cheering. I was cheerleader 8th and 9th grade, and then high school rolled around, and I originally didn't try out for the drill team at Davis, but they needed more dancers, and so they redid them, and I was like, okay, I'll go try out.
Yeah.
And then I got on the team, and yeah.
Yeah. And I guess like kind of going back, like you don't remember the confidence shift at all. Nothing.
I don't remember like something like pivotal happening. I think like I remember being shy because truly because I really was like, I don't want people to look at me. Like, I don't want to be noticed.
Yep.
I just want to like fade into the wallpaper and like blend in there, because I was so worried that I was going to mess something up or I was going to say the wrong thing or look stupid.
Yep.
And then at some point I just stopped caring about that.
Which is awesome.
And I see that in my son now.
Yeah.
Who like the like self-confidence, like just kind of lacking in something.
But don't you feel like that's the way to live? You know what I'm saying?
Not caring.
Oh, I mean,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think and don't get me wrong, it's like everybody's got so many problems. Everybody's got their own crap that they're dealing with. And it's really easy to cast judgment, or it's even really easy to like be a little bit like, oh man, that person's doing better than I am. You know what I'm saying? So you're casting a lot of shade because it's like, how did they already get to that point in their life where like I'm held back? I haven't figured this out yet. You know, there's a little bit of that jealousy factor.
Yeah.
You know, and so I love that because like that's huge for people. Once you can kind of like almost, you know, plug your ears.
Be doing anything that I'm doing now. Like everything that I do involves some sort of like presence and like not being scared to fail. And I wouldn't have ever dove into anything that I'm doing now if I didn't at some point have that shift and just be like, everyone messes up.
Yeah.
Like, I truly, playing soccer, felt like when the ball was coming to me, if I swung and I missed, everyone was just going to start laughing.
Yeah.
And I would be so embarrassed.
Correct.
When really, like, my mom's like, everyone's watching their own kid.
Correct.
No one cares what you do.
Everybody's got their own problems.
Yeah. And so, like, I really don't, I wish I had like some cool story for you. Like, this happened and my life changed.
No, but I love
don't.
it because like to me, that is the story. You know what I'm saying? I think what a lot of people struggle with is they really care about outside opinions. They really like don't know what to do with their life. They're really wanting to be accepted. There's a lot of insecurity that's out there. And I think like genuinely, once you can figure out what you're confident in, you just start to move forward in that. I think life just gets so much happier, so much better. You know, which I think is super cool. Obviously, I kind of want to touch on your high school for a little bit. You had a little bit different of a high school experience than probably the majority of people have. What was that like for you? Kind of expound on it just a little bit as far as, you know, what was kind of like the hard part about going through that at that age, you know, from like your parents, friends, family, everybody around you, but like what's the big blessing that you see in it now?
So obviously we're talking about the fact that I got pregnant when I was 16.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if we
haven't established it quite yet.
So, I mean, I felt like, so I was a sophomore when I got pregnant.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone when I was a sophomore, but, so it kind of came out in between, sophomore and junior year.
And like, what was it like just finding out? Like genuinely, like, do you remember like finding out and being like, was it like, oh crap? Or like, what was the emotions that you kind of had going through this?
I think the thing about where I went to school and like who my friends were and are, I still have a lot of friends from high school, but is that it is like, I didn't feel comfortable even telling anybody that I had even had sex.
Yeah.
Like, can I say sex?
1,000%, Katie.
I'm like, what can I say?
1,000%, Katie.
So,
and we're not even going to cut this out.
So there was like, we would talk about with your girlfriends, like, oh, like who you're like making out with. And that's like as far as it went. And I remember feeling like we were having a conversation with a couple of my girlfriends and someone said something about like, I don't know if they called it this, derfing.
Yeah.
You know what derfing is?
1,000%, Katie.
And so I didn't know if that was like I thought it was like a Davis High term.
Yeah.
But, and so they were talking about derfing which is DFing.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was like, I would never, like, that is so disgusting.
Yeah.
And here I am like in the car. I remember like the scene because it's like when like intense emotions come on you, you kind of like remember everything around you, you know?
Correct.
And I just felt like this like huge like shame. Like, all right, well, I am never telling them what I've done.
Correct.
Because they think that's bad. Well, I've had sex.
Yeah.
And obviously these are not the people I can open up to about that because they think derfing's bad.
Yeah.
And this is a whole new level.
Yeah.
So I didn't talk about it with anyone. None of my friends knew that I had even had sex. Like me and my boyfriend were the only people that I knew that knew. I don't know who he
Yeah.
talked to. Boys are a little bit different about how they brag about what they're doing. But I personally didn't tell not one person, not my best friend.
Yeah.
And it was because it was like, nobody else is doing this. Who do I talk to about it? So I think,
and I think like, how did that make you feel? And then at what point were you like, I got to talk about it?
it made me feel super shitty.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like I said, like
Yeah.
this intense shame. And at that point, like I wasn't pregnant that I know of.
Yeah.
But it also didn't make me like stop doing it, obviously.
Correct.
So I didn't talk about it with anybody. Still up until like I told people that I was pregnant, I didn't talk about it with anybody.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, oh, obviously
Yeah.
you've done this now.
Yep.
So I felt forced to talk about it. It was
Correct.
never like, oh, I feel comfortable talking about it.
And I think people that are like going through this are wondering what the experience is like. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously you're terrified probably. You know, like we live in a community that's, you know, obviously a very religious community where this is frowned upon.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, when you talk about friends and stuff like that, in just like in generic, like there's not a whole lot of people that are doing it at that age anyways.
Right.
You know? And so like, I think now where you are now today, looking back on it, you know what I'm saying? And kind of reliving those feelings or whatever, like when you told people that you actually were, you know what I'm saying? Back then, what did you feel like? And what's the positive of like the now of you living through it?
I think like back then it was just like, this is the worst thing that could
Like
ever
how did your
happen.
parents receive it? How did everybody receive it?
I mean, I've talked about this a few times, like recently in the last years, like the last, like really the only time that I can think that I've like really like publicly talked about it. Cause I didn't think people cared.
Yeah.
But I had like brought up like a little bit of it. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden people were like, tell me. Cause I think
Correct.
it is like super curious.
I think it's interesting because it happens a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife and I have 3 girls. I've clearly obviously wanted a boy all the time. You know what I'm saying? And like, it was probably about a year ago, somebody came to us in your same situation, right? They were in high school. Like she was very young and they found out they were having a boy and there was this opportunity to adopt the boy. But the girl decided to hang on to it, right? So obviously like genuinely we were very excited to possibly have a boy in our family, you know, without doing the whole in vitro and like, you know, basically manipulating the process. But you know, they decided to hang on to the baby, which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
You know? And so like for you, I think like when you told your family or told your parents, like what were those conversations like? And then we'll kind of come back to the question on, you know, you now looking back, what was the positive that came out of it?
Well, I think like initial shock, obviously, for like my parents, because I never had a confirmed like I'm pregnant. I never took a pregnancy test.
Really?
So I was like freaking like 85 pounds in high school.
Yeah.
Like I was teeny tiny and I didn't have regular periods anyways. So like when I was missing them, it wasn't weird to me. I wasn't like initially freaked out. Like I wasn't like, oh, I missed a period.
Yeah.
I had sex. I might be pregnant. It was
Yeah.
like
Whatever.
living my life. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I started to have like other symptoms. Like I remember the first thing that happened was like my boobs got huge. And for a tiny person, I was like,
It's a little noticeable.
well, I was like, oh, this is cool. But then I was like, but this isn't normal.
Correct.
This is weird. So I think the fact that I didn't, like the reason I didn't take a test is because I didn't really want that confirmation.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to keep pretending that it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell my parents until I was like 18 weeks along.
Yeah.
So I'm well into my second trimester. I'm showing. And it was summertime. And so I was just like wearing baggy clothes. I wasn't going swimming. I wasn't leaving my house much because then it was real and it was obvious. And I was just buying myself as much time as I could to remain normal because I was so scared to tell them that like it was going to turn into, all right, well, you're in your bedroom for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
We'll bring you food. And
The ultimate worst case.
Yeah. And obviously that's not what happened. But in my head, it was my parents are going to kill me
Correct.
And so this is my only option. And so to keep this going, my life normal as long as I can, I'm just going to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll go away.
Yeah.
But then I was showing, we were going to go to Lake Powell, and it was going to be very apparent there. I was not going to get away with it
Yep.
on a boat with my whole family. So I tried to write a letter to my mom.
Really?
Yeah, because I couldn't talk about it. Like anytime I like thought about like sitting down with my mom and telling her,
Yeah.
I would just like burst into tears, and like I couldn't do it. So that was like my easy way out. Like I was trying to just like, I'm just going to give her this letter, lock my bedroom door. We can talk about it under the door. Like I just can't look at her. And my dad was a whole different story, because that was even more terrifying to me.
Yeah.
So I planned on writing my mom a letter, but she came home when I was in like our den typing it up, and she like came home and kind of caught me writing the letter. I like tried to shut it down and like get out of there, but I was just bawling, and my mom's like, "What is wrong?" And I couldn't even speak. And so she's just sitting there guessing. She's like, "Did something happen at school?" I'm like, "No." "Did something happen with your friends?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Did something happen with Jordan and my son's dad?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, and then she just kind of like stops and was like, "Are you pregnant?" And I just like, as much as I was crying, I started crying even harder.
Yeah.
And all I could do was shake my head yes. And she was like, "Oh," like just like ghost white. Like it's like she knew deep down.
The motherly instinct. Yeah.
But then she was like pissed that she also didn't know, because she's like, "How did I not see this?"
Yeah.
Like, you are normally so active. Like the summer before that, I was with my friends in a swimming pool every single day of the summer. Like I'd go to drill team practice, and I would come home, change into my swimming suit, go swimming, and be gone all day. And then this summer, it was like I was a homebody. So she was kind of like upset with herself almost, it seemed like, that she didn't really recognize what was really happening.
Yeah.
And then I asked her, like, we talked about it. She was sad, but she was like, "It's okay. Like it's going to be okay." Just kind of in pure shock. And then my dad wasn't home yet. And I asked her, she was like, "We got to tell your dad." And I was like, "Will you tell him?" And she's like, "No, you have to tell him." And I was like, "Okay." So I went up to my room and like just was emotional until my dad got home. And then my mom brought him upstairs and was like, "Katie needs to tell you something." And he was like smiling. And he was like, "What? What is it?"
Super happy.
And then he saw my face and was like knew it wasn't something good.
Yeah.
And we sat down, and I just told him like one sentence, "I'm pregnant." And he stood up off my bed and walked out of my room.
Really?
And like looking back, that was just like probably the best thing that he could have done.
Yeah.
Because he needed to like process that.
Correct.
Instead of I'm like my dad, we're highly like emotional people.
Yep.
So like feel big things.
Yeah.
And so rather than him like screaming at me or crying in front of me, bawling his eyes out, or getting in his car and going and killing the guy who got me pregnant,
Yeah.
it was the best thing that he could have done. And then he came back and we talked about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was like, to this day, that's still probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I've
As far
had
as
to
telling
do.
them.
Mm-hmm.
What, like, and I guess when you kind of chatted with them, I'm sure the question came about like, what did you want to do with the baby? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, walk me through kind of your mindset as far as like, did you go back and forth on like what possibly you should do with it? You know, what you should do with the baby? Was it always just like, no, I'm going to keep it, like, this is mine. Like I need to overcome this challenge, or what was kind of your mindset with it?
It was, well, from the very beginning, it was like, it's your decision. Like my parents said that. And his family also said that, and we'll support you in whatever you guys choose. And so I did go sit down with LDS Family Services. They kind of, we went through like options with them. They have so many families looking to adopt. So I sat down with them. I went through like And I still wasn't like, I made it very clear with them, like, my mind's not made up, but I'm open.
Correct.
Like, I don't want to just be like, this is what I'm doing, this is the only answer. Like, I wanted to feel it out and be like, what feels good to me?
Yep.
And if a family, you know, I come across their profile that I'm looking through, is back in the day, my son's 14, so it was all paper profiles that just had everything about him, pictures and all that. And I thought, like, if a family comes up that I just like, I'm like, this feels right, then that's my answer. And I went through, like, they give you a stack to take home, and I went through like 3-4 stacks of families, and I just like was so anxious looking through them all the time that it just never felt right to me.
Yeah.
And so I finally told my mom, I was like, I think I'm done looking at families. Like, that doesn't feel right to me, and I want to keep my baby. And she was kind of like, are you sure? Like, I know we said this is your choice, but like, I want you to recognize like how hard your life is going to be if this is what you choose. Like, everything will change. Because
I'm sure like her looking in is, it's like you were a junior in high school, maybe going to be a senior when you had your son?
No, I had it my junior year.
Did you have him in your junior year? So she's probably sitting there thinking like, hey, you're going to miss your high school experience.
Yeah.
Then obviously you have, then you're going to have this responsibility that's going to be rough and tough.
Yeah.
And then it's probably like, how are we going to get through this together? I'm sure there's a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah. It's like, okay, so what's your plan then? Like, you obviously can't just go back to high school full time and pretend and like leave your baby at home. And like, I got all of those questions, you know, it's like, I didn't feel like she was telling me that I was making the wrong decision. It was like very valid questions to be asking me. But, and I think there was a period of time like that she did say, I don't think that that's the best choice, because of how hard it's going to make your life. Yeah. Both my parents kind of were like, you know, it's your choice, but please recognize how hard this is going to be.
Correct.
Because I think like when you're pregnant too, like you don't know this, but when
I don't.
you have a whole, I'm sure you could understand though, like all the emotions that are like going on anyways.
Yeah, I've done this 3 times then.
Yeah. So you've helped, but it's like you have all these emotions that are going on anyways through your head that it's like, don't make this an emotional decision only. Like, think about all of this before you like really are set on what you're going to do. Yeah. But remember, I didn't tell them until I was 18 weeks along. Wow. So I had like, I went to the doctor, and at that doctor's appointment, they did the full like 20-week, this is your baby's gender. Like, you could see all of that. Yeah. So I had 20 weeks to decide what I was going to do. Yep. And not even really that, you know, like I feel like my pregnancy was really short because I only really accepted that it was happening for half of it. Yeah. So.
And kind of looking back on it now, like, obviously the greatest blessing is having him in your life.
Yeah.
But like, what's the positive takeaway of what you went through?
I mean, there's a lot of positives in like my opinion. Like, I think like I like realized that I could do hard things, and that like my life wasn't over, and you can make a decision like on anything that happens in your life on how you're going to handle it. And so I think that like from a very young age, I just learned like that I can do hard things. If I want to do them and I have the desire to do them, then like anything is truly possible. So then like everything that's come after that, you know, that shit didn't end there, but everything that's come past after that is just like, all right, well, I already had a baby when I was 17. So I think I can handle this. Yeah. So like, that's probably the biggest positive, is just like this like mindset of I can handle this. And like, it wasn't my plan. Yep. You can plan your whole life. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. It wasn't my plan, but I adapted and I did everything I needed to make it work out.
No, I think it's awesome because like obviously people have different, I think, challenges as they go through life. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's employment, you know, your situation, whether it's death, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? I think the thing that I enjoy talking to you about, or you kind of opening up to this whole subject, and kind of addressing it, is I really genuinely wanted to know like what you got out of it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure there was so much judgment coming in from like friends and family and other people in the community as far as like who you are as a person and blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? But Danny loves that, by the way. It only makes me laugh because Danny loves when I say blah, 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 blah. I know. But no, like I think generally for me, what I love about this is like you took at it as like, I'm going to figure this out. And then at this age, this was extremely hard, which means stuff moving forward from here on out is probably pretty decently easy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas like people might look at like, hey, I graduated high school, I'm headed to college, I'm nervous about it. It's going to be so hard. You know, like you coming out of kind of that high school situation, having your son, like what did you do from there as far as getting into what you're doing now? Like what did that look like?
So I finished high school with like a lot of college credits already.
Yeah.
Just honestly, the way that it worked out with having my son in high school, I stayed home one day, like the A days, B days. So I would have classes on A days, B days, I would get to be at home doing like packets is what they were.
Yep.
And I did the packets for like the classes that like didn't really have a better option. Just like you have to do this to graduate. Here it is. And then I took like CE classes, which would double me up on credits for high school. So I'd get double credits. And then they also counted for college credits. So
That's awesome.
That's all I had on like my one day that I went was college courses.
Yeah.
So I graduated on time. Like there was no issues with that. I graduated with credits. So when I started college, I was already like a semester and a half through like my general education.
Which I think that's crazy, right? Because most people look at this and be like, oh, she probably didn't finish high school. Oh,
Yeah.
nothing came out of this. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of people don't.
But what you did is like you actually got way further ahead from the setback than get behind, which I think is super cool.
Right. And it like kind of pushed me to do that because I think like a lot of my friends senior year was kind of like, all right, I did everything I needed to do.
You just chill.
I'm just going to like take all these like, oh, you can be at home for a whole period.
I mean, I did that, Katie, so
Yeah.
you can move on past the subject.
Anyways, if this is making you uncomfortable, which is fine. I would have done the same thing.
I think what's like genuinely cool about this is like you had to grow up really quick. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, like talking about the setback, going through these hard things, like for me, high school was just about like playing as many sports as I possibly could and enjoying it with my friends and everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And so like you aren't really focused on what the next step is. Because to me, the next step was hopefully go play college ball doing something, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. It was never like academically trying to get ahead. You know, like I hated school. I knew I hated school. And so like some of my friends were super smart and they got academically ahead.
Yeah.
But there was nothing in my path in high school that was super hard or rough that made me think like, oh, what does the future actually look like for me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of like this reality check.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? Because that was like a big part of it was when I told my like family and everyone that I was keeping Trey, it was kind of like, okay, now I can't let anybody down. Like I have to be like, this is a good decision for me.
Yep.
This helped me and I can do this. Rather than like, okay, who's going to take care of me now? Like, I can stay in your basement till I'm married off, right, mom and dad?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like that at all. Like, I didn't want a handout from anybody.
Yeah.
I got a job. Like, I didn't want anybody to have to be burdened by my decision because they let it be my decision. And it wasn't their decision. So I didn't want to make them raise a child that they're like, why did you keep this child if we're the ones raising it and paying for it? So it kind of pushed me to be like, okay, I got to do something now.
Yeah.
So, so college was way better than high school, honestly, because high school was pretty uncomfortable for me. Going back for my senior year when I had a baby. I mean, even I went back my junior year, the second semester, again, just like one day a week, but it was like uncomfortable and very judgmental. When I went to college, it was just like nobody knows.
Correct.
Nobody cares.
Fresh start.
Everybody's just here. Yeah. So it was awesome. But
Where'd you go to college?
Weaver. So
And how quick did you get it done?
So I finished my like general education in like 2 years. I was kind of debating what I was going to do as far as applying for nursing school. I was thinking maybe like radiology. Obviously, like I said, I knew it was going to be medical, but it was kind of like, okay, what's the best route? And then, so I took like a semester off. I was working at Nordstrom in the lingerie department.
Killing it.
Selling bras and underwear and trying to get my like prerequisites done so that I could apply for one of the colleges. So I decided on nursing because it was like, okay, this is super flexible. There's so much you can do with it. You could even like keep going if, you know, down the road I want to get like be a nurse practitioner and get my doctorate. I can be a doctor just like I always dreamed of being. It just might take longer to get there and it might be at a different point in my life, but I could still do it. So here's the best option for me. It's nursing. And I enjoy it. And so I applied to nursing school. I got in at the DATC, which is like Weaver's like sister program. When you graduate from the DATC in nursing, your degree says Weaver State. You just get to do it at the DATC campus. So I lived in Kaysville in like these tiny little apartments over behind, it used to be Yogo Togo. And me and Trey lived there. It was a 2-bedroom, really crappy little apartment. But that's where I lived and went to the DATC. And it was, I mean, nursing school versus college is like very different. College, you know, you can take all different types of class times and make it work for you online and all of that. But like nursing school was when it was like, okay, this is where I understand what my parents were saying of like, this is going to be so much harder for you versus someone who doesn't have a child. And not that people don't go to college and go to nursing school with children all the time. Just most of the time they have like
a spouse. To be at home. So, I mean, I am very fortunate that my parents are so supportive and helpful. But again, it was just that mindset of like, I don't want you to have to do anything for me. So like my college was all paid for via like scholarships and then also reaping a little bit of benefits from being a mom at such a young age. So an unwed mother, I guess. So it was all paid for, so that wasn't an issue. It was just like the timing of things once I got into nursing school of like, okay, how can I spend time with my child, be going to nursing school, and be working? So what I did was halfway through nursing school, you get what's called you can test for a licensed practical nurse. And then you can start making a little bit more money because CNAs make crap money. They work super hard, but they do not make anything. So I actually never worked as a CNA. I worked as a medical assistant and it was a little bit better. But once I got to the LPN point, I would work at night. So since I didn't live with my mom and dad, I would take Trey up to their house to sleep. I'd put him in bed at their house. Then I'd go to my night job, and it was like a home health for like a pediatric home health. So I'd go take care of little sick kids in their homes all night long, and then I'd get off at like 7 a.m. I'd go pick Trey up, get him ready for school at my mom's house, drive him to school, and then go to nursing school. Maybe get a nap in, like maybe. And how long did this go on for?
That wasn't every night, but that was for like the last year of nursing school.
Really?
So nursing school is 2 years, 2.5, the program that I went through because it was straight through.
And how many days a week would you go with that schedule?
It just depended. So like typically I'd work like 2 or 3 nights a week. And doing that. So, and then I'd have to go to school and then I'd have to study and then repeat.
Start it all over again.
So the nights off that I didn't have to work were nice. We'd stay at my apartment. Me and Trey would hang out. I'd be making him mac and cheese. Like it was nothing glorious, but it was like what it was our life. It was our I don't have much of a social life at this point, but it was okay because I figured it was like the means to an end. It's like, okay, I can do this for a year. And then I can get a big girl nursing job and go work in a hospital and have somewhat better hours. I mean, nursing has some pretty shitty hours, but
So obviously graduating, like what did you dive into first? Like how did you get started kind of like down your career path as far as like what you wanted to do and that?
Okay. So the end of nursing school, you go to what's called like a nurse residency.
Yep.
So you get to pick kind of what floor, give some suggestions. You don't necessarily get to pick. They kind of place you, but you get to say like, okay, these are the places that I would like to go to.
Yep.
So one place that I had really enjoyed when we were doing our clinicals and rotations and stuff was the operating room. Surgery would just fascinated me. Kind of like when I was having that little surgery on my own arm and I wanted to watch the whole thing.
I want nothing to do with it.
You're like, that's disgusting.
And it's not that it's disgusting. I think I'd find it intriguing. I just like genuinely, like, obviously we'll get to your fiance, but like, I don't know how he can be a firefighter.
Yeah.
Like to like go see somebody that got in a car wreck or go see somebody that's had a terrible accident.
Yeah.
Like it would scar me for life. Like it would never leave my brain. And I'm sure you get used to it. You know what I'm saying? But like just the thought of somebody being in a horrific accident and I have to be like one of the first people there to see what the state that they're in just sounds like a nightmare to me.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit better. Like I agree with you. We can talk about TJ in a little bit, but like it's different in the hospital versus like on in scene, like someone's like home, someone's car, someone's family's there. Yep. Like the hospital is very different because they are brought to us.
Yep.
And they've done some of the care, you know, things have been, you know, put back together, wiped up, things like that. Yep. So it's not as like intense of a situation, I would say. Like first responders, people that are there on scene, it's like a whole different story.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I found like this joy in the operating room. So I ended up doing my residency at McKay-D in the operating room. And then I didn't want to work in Ogden. Nothing against Ogden. I think Ogden's great.
Yep. Just didn't want to be up that way.
But I just didn't want to be up there. So I got a job at IMC, which is a big like Death Star in Murray off of 53rd. And that was my first like official nursing job.
Yeah.
And that is where, I mean, everything started. That's where I started making connections with physicians, with anesthesiologists, with tons of different people, which then eventually led to where I am. But I did the operating room for 3 years. And then I left, like I stayed PRN, but I left for a minute so I could go help a plastic surgeon open a private practice with an operating room. He needed a nurse who knew surgery, who knew all of that so that he could have a surgical suite within his clinic. So plastic surgeon and equals like foot in the door to beauty industry.
Yep.
Which I found intriguing. I didn't really know how much I would end up liking it. So that was my foot in the door as far as like what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But I didn't work for him for like a super long time. He taught me how to do a lot of the stuff that I do now, anatomy, like opened my eyes to what it could be.
Yep.
But as far as like environment, working for him in like a big med spa practice, I realized that it wasn't for me. So I ended up going back to the hospital full time, back into the operating room, doing surgery, very opposite. My patients are asleep. I don't talk to them.
Yep.
I ran the transplant program. So like liver transplants, kidney transplants, pancreas, all of the abdominal transplant. I ran that team for the operating room. So different, but still within like surgery, even though I was running like a transplant team, I still got to do plastic surgery often and all the different types of surgeries. Just, you know, you're not always doing a transplant, so you're doing other things all the time. But
talk to me really quick, like for those people that want to go to, you know, basically nursing school, like give me the hard part about trying to obviously graduate, do the residency, whatever that looks like. What's kind of the hardest thing with becoming a nurse or doing kind of the nursing side of it that just people just don't think about before they dive into it?
If you like truly hadn't done anything in the medical field before, then it would just be like the like shock effect of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But as far as like I love nursing school.
Loved it.
It was so fun. I still have some of my really good friends from nursing school because you go through it together.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is I'm not like some like genius. school has always been easy for me.
Yep.
Especially when you're interested in a subject. So it wasn't so much like the content that made it difficult. It was just like the hours that you needed to put in
Yep.
In order to get through it, because you can't just go to a hospital and like.
So just a bunch of hours.
Yeah.
You obviously enjoyed the school side of it, but there's definitely a lot of school that gets involved.
Yeah. And not everyone enjoys that part of it, but I think it's just like time consuming.
Yeah.
But
and then once you like obviously get hired at a hospital, do you feel like you're just at the bottom of the bucket? Like hour wise where you're working, or do you really think it's like what department or what area you kind of choose to be in?
Yeah, I think it's more like the latter. Like it's just where you end up, because which is why I love nursing, is because it's so different. Like you can have a completely different job. You're still a registered nurse. You're all registered nurses, but what I do day to day is so different than what someone who works in Instacare does as a nurse day to day. Like it's just whatever you find joy in within nursing, you can find something for you.
Yep.
Like I hated the emergency room. I hate the ER. Like I never wanted to work in the ER. And then so many people in nursing school are like, oh my gosh, the ER is so cool. And I'm just like, have you been there?
Yeah.
Like this is not, it's not cool.
Yeah.
For me, but that like trauma is so for someone. There's so many nurses that are like, I'll never do anything else.
Yeah.
So that's what's really cool about it, is like, even if you don't love like people are like, oh, you just like wipe people's asses. And it's like, no. Yeah. Like, but if you enjoy that, you can work in a care, like a long-term care facility.
Let's kind of pivot into like what you're doing now. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Obviously you're taking my money. Obviously you're making women look beautiful. Like you had kind of mentioned that you had kind of worked with a plastic surgeon for a little bit. Like at what point did you realize like, hey, this is what I want to do? And like, what's the joy out of it for you? Okay.
So I worked for a plastic surgeon. I got to do a lot of the injecting that I'm doing now with him. But again, it just like wasn't the right environment. So then when I went back to the hospital, I missed the like part of the job when I worked for the plastic surgeon that was like helping people feel confident, like making them feel beautiful. The actual like procedures itself are so fun for me to do. So I missed all of that. But when I would go apply at like bigger spas, it just all kind of felt the same to me.
Yep.
And kind of gave me like the same vibes as where I had left working. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, like I probably just have to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And so in order to have like a spa as a nurse, you have to have a medical director. So either a nurse practitioner or an MD, like someone over you who can actually get the medications for you and allow you to work under their license. So I had a friend who was in NP school, nurse practitioner school, and like I would just talk about it all the time. I'm like, oh, I really want to get back into injecting. Like I miss it. And she was like, well, I'll help you.
Yeah.
When I graduate, I'll help you.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I'll hook you up with the drugs.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
And yeah, pretty much like, and I was like, really? You would help me do that? And she's like, yeah, like you can just tell you're like passionate about it. And so I'd love to help you. So my first spa, was called Loom, my first business when I broke out of the hospital. And, that was with my friend that I had worked with for years in the operating room.
Yeah.
And she finished her NP and she did it. She helped me. She like was my medical director. And so we kind of got back into it together with me being like the injector and she was my medical director. And then it didn't work out. I love her to death. Like the fact that she helped me like start my dream, I will never, ever, ever be able to like explain to her, like repay her for, but like it just didn't work out. And so I needed to like do something completely on my own and not have a partner in it because I think things can get messy with partnerships. And so before it got like ugly and we couldn't have a friendship anymore, we just decided to go our separate ways. So then I know so many nurse practitioners. I know so many doctors. Like it's just asking someone to do that for you.
Yeah.
But it's not like they don't get anything out of it. You know, you pay them to be over you.
Yep.
But I had a friend who I had trained to do injections. She's a nurse practitioner. And I trained her, and so when I was talking to her about like, oh, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think we're going to dissolve Loom. And she was like, well, I'll be your medical director then. And so then she offered to help me. So that's kind of where we are now. But I mean, going back to like leaving the hospital, and going full time into my own thing, that was like another like very scary thing for me to do. But it just like took me back to like I can do this, like this. Yep. And no matter what, like if I jump, like there's going to be a place to fall.
Well, let's be honest. You're in an environment that is very popular now. You know what I'm saying? I think what's crazy to me is like, I feel like, you know, getting Botox or whatever for a long time was just for older women. Now it's almost like 20-year-olds are doing it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I have a very, like, I would say young clientele. Yeah. Probably because I'm young, you know, I'm 31. So
correct.
I've been doing things like this since I worked for the plastic surgeon, because why would you not?
And I really think you're doing something that's solutionizing a problem for women, right? Which is always the beauty factor. Mm-hmm. Like everybody wants to look younger. Everybody wants to feel better about themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think like what I get jealous about with your business is you've got, like what you said, I mean, you're going to have clients for years. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife is young. And we still got another 40 years of visiting you, which I'm just like adding this up right now. You know what I'm saying?
You're like, and I hate you. And I'm just looking at you and I'm just dollar signs. No. I think that like, the fact that I got into it, when I did was perfect. Because I am still young, but, like, still like moldable, and I could make it into like what I wanted it to be. Yep. So the reason that I didn't ever want to go into like a different like spa and like work for somebody doing it was because I wanted it. I didn't want any pressure to be like creating something or like having some expectation from a company, when like all I truly wanted to do was be able to like look at someone like your wife and be like, you are beautiful. What bothers you though? Yeah. Like, you tell me. Is it this line? Like, I'm not going to sit there and point out anything to someone or try to sell them something that they don't need.
That's funny. She always blames it on you.
Yeah. I let people do that. It's so nice.
And I'm genuinely like interested in this subject, right? Because I think you get the negative and the positive of Botox. Like when people come to see you and you sit there and you stare at them and it's like, so what am I injecting? You know what I'm saying? And they're like, have you had any awkward encounters where it's like, hey, you really don't need this? And why are you here? Or do you feel like there's not really any safety issues to it, and like it's pretty good thing for women and people just to do to obviously, you know, keep up on their image?
Right. So in like the right hands, like all of these like fillers, Botox, like injections are safe. As long as like you know what you're doing, you're trained, you get a full like medical history from your clients. All of that, it's safe as far as like what I'm doing goes. Where like you get into like a gray area is with like the whole like mental part of it, of like feeding someone's body dysmorphia. Yeah. And so yeah, like it does get awkward sometimes when I'm like, I can't help you with what you say you want because I don't see it. Yeah. It's like someone's like, don't you see this line right here? Don't you see this fold? Don't you see this? And it's like, no, I don't. I think that you look wonderful. Yeah. And there's nothing there for me to treat. So I'm not going to just be like, yeah, sure, I'll fill it in for you. Yeah. You can go home and tell me if you feel better, because I think that is where you're like feeding someone's like mindset that is skewed. Yeah. And so you can't treat someone who's like mentally has that body dysmorphia. That's like the best way to explain it is like, if you come in and you tell me like, I've done it with Botox before, and people are like, look, my head's still moving. I'm like, okay, like I can add some more, raise your eyebrows for me. Yeah. No movement. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not going to put more of this in your face. You don't need it. Your face isn't moving. Correct. Like the areas that bothered you, like they are treated. You just need to give it time now. Like I don't have a magic wand. I'm not going to take 30 years off of your face. Like that is not what I'm doing. Yep. It's just making you feel better and giving you like a little confidence boost, kind of holding you in place, but my goal is never to change somebody's face. Like, I never want anyone to walk out and be unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Like, I tell my clients all the time, my goal for me specifically that I want to, like, you know, put on to my clients and my patients is I want to be able to show up to like my 20-year, 30-year high school reunion and have people be like, Katie, you look so good.
Yep.
Like, what have you been doing? You haven't aged a day. Like, things like that. But not walk into it and have people be like, who are you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Katie. And they're like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, you look so different.
Yeah.
That would be my nightmare.
Yeah.
And I think that should be like everyone's goal is to remain looking like themselves. But when you get into like, I want to change this about myself. I hate this about myself. Like, there's like some like trigger words that I'm just like, all right, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to make this worse.
Yeah.
You're going to start picking yourself apart even more.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? Because I think I think everybody's a little insecure about their image and is always trying to look a little bit better. And so, you know, that's obviously a great way to, I guess, put it. Talk to us really quick. Obviously, you do spin. I see you posting about it all the time. My wife forced me there for like with a bunch of her family members, and I sat there and thought like, this is going to be the dumbest thing. Like, you want me to go watch a lady teach us how to spin a bike? You know what I'm saying?
Like,
We're
I
going to
can
do
ride
an
a bike,
hour.
honey.
Like, why do I got to go do this with her? And I actually liked the environment. I thought was like crazy cool because I'd never done it before. You know, like with the music and the lighting and everything that's going on, and obviously the way that a spin class kind of happens. Like, I thought genuinely it was actually a lot of fun. You know, and I can see why people kind of get hooked on it and always come back.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing spin? Like, how did you get into it? You know, why is that fun for you?
So this is like my like other part of my life, right? Like, I consider both of my jobs to be like, I'm incredibly blessed to be able to do the two things that I like love and am passionate about. But they're different, and then they also blend together really well. So my best friend, Taylor Davis, who she was supposed to come tonight, but her babies are sick and I miss her. But her and her husband are the ones that own the spin studio, or it's not just a spin. And it's actually, if we want to be technical, it's called indoor cycling, the way that we do it. So it's called Cure, and it's in Centerville. And they kind of had this like dream for it going back like 4 years. We would go to some boutique indoor cycling studios downtown, and there was just one back then that I can think of that we'd always go to, and we fell in love with it. Like, her and her husband went in Arizona, and then they found a place here in Utah, and then I started going with them, and they were like, this isn't anywhere in Davis County. Like, we have to bring this to Davis County.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of like started it. And I would consider them like family. So even though I don't own the business, it is like also my baby. And I want nothing but its growth and success because they're my family, and that's what I want for them. And I truly believe in the space that they've created. So it was just kind of like going to classes and like realizing like how fun and different it was, and that like we needed to bring something like that to our community that we all grew up in. Taylor's from this area too.
Yeah.
And so I for like a little while, it was kind of like, oh yeah, you know, you say like, we're going to do this. We should open a spin studio. We should open this. And then it's just like, yeah, we should. Nothing ever happens. But then like, it was like, no, we're doing this. And like, what do you want to be a part of it? And like, you know, help teach, whatever.
So did you have any idea of how to even teach a spin class?
No.
No clue.
So me and Taylor, once it got like further down the road into like construction and they had a space for it and everything, me and Taylor went to Texas for like 5 days or something like that, and did like a hardcore instructor training with a guy who is like amazing and had been doing it for like 15 years and like helped create indoor cycling. And because it's a little different than just going to like a Vasa spin class or like even like a cycling class at my gym, it's so different because it's lights, it's mood, it's energy. It's so different than any workout I had ever done. And so it was really special. So in order to learn how to do that well, like we needed some intense training. Yeah. So that's what we did. And it was just like, we seriously, like my butt was raw after the week because it was just like hours and hours every day, riding a bike, cycling, and then like going over how to be like an effective coach.
Yeah. Which I think you do a great job at. You know what I'm saying? like genuinely, like that was a lot of fun. And I think for those people that haven't done it, you know, because that's where my mind goes. It goes to like the gym cycling class, which is like, so we're going to watch a person on stage just tell us to twist the dial a little bit harder.
He's going to go.
Yeah. And so like, I guess for those people that haven't tried it, you got to go try it. Because to me, like I genuinely thought it was actually a lot of fun.
And you were negative about it before.
I was super negative about it.
You're
it sounded
being kind
like
of a dick.
the dumbest idea ever. But no, and I think like to kind of go back to all of our conversations, you know what I'm saying? Like you growing up, you going like living your life, you know, trying to get through nursing school, you doing what you're doing now. I think what's cool about this subject is, you know, there's adversity that I think comes to a lot of people's lives, and it's just how do you handle that adversity? And that's why I think like I wanted to drill you really hard today on like what were people like and how did you overcome it? And I think you said one of the greatest things that really the best advice I want to give my girls as they grow up, you know, which is A, they need some confidence, but B, it's like how do you just eliminate the noise? You know what I'm saying? All the outside people that are casting the judgment, and good or bad, you know what I'm saying? Like I think what's tough is like when you're on your high, like people like to ride that high.
Yeah.
But they also have a really hard time when like they're really low. And so it's like, how do you just stay consistent? How do you just do you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I guess to kind of wrap things up for you, like what's one of the last pieces of advice I think you would give to anybody, whether it's about the way you've lived your life or like going through everything that you've gone through? Like what's kind of one of the very last things that I think you would kind of tell everybody?
Oh man, that's hard. I wish I had like planned a line, but I didn't. So this is like straight just from the seat of my pants. But I think it comes down to like truly like nobody else matters. Nobody's opinion matters. And as much as they would love for their opinions to matter, at the end of the day, the only opinion that matters is like yours and what you're going to do with it and what you think of yourself. And that's also why I love to like bring it back into like what I do is if anybody came into me and was like, I want lip injections because my husband will think I'm more attractive, I would say, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, does it matter to you? Is that what you want? Is that what's going to give you confidence? Is that what's going to make you feel better? Yeah. So do the things that are going to make you feel better in like all aspects of life. And who cares what anybody else thinks about it?
Yeah. Which I love. And like genuinely thanks for your time. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm excited for you and TJ. I think it's so cool that you guys are getting married. Yeah. Like next stage of life for you. Yeah. We better get invited to the party.
Yeah, you guys better come. It's gonna be a good party.
We'll be there.
I'm planning a legit party. This is like one party I'm planning that I'm like, this is gonna be a good party. Yeah. So
but thanks, like genuinely, I think thanks for telling your story. Because I think a lot of people are interested in it. You know, like how did you make it through? What happened to you in your life? Like, you know, everybody's got those questions. And I think being my age now at 37, I look back on it and I think like, well, if that happens to my girl, how would I handle that? You know, what would she go through? Yeah.
And I'm sure my parents would even handle it differently now if I came to them than they did back then because they see it. They're like, it all works out. Yep. But in the moment, you're like, how is this going to work out?
Correct.
But it all works out and often better than you think that it's going to be. Like, if you had told me that my life now, it was going to be what it is when I was 17 and pregnant, I would have been like, yeah, you're off your rocker. Like,
yeah, there's no way.
That's not going to happen. Yeah. But it's turned out so much. I knew I could do it, but it's so much better than what I could have ever imagined. Yeah. So. And
I hope the last takeaway from this is it just gives people hope. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's all. I would never consider myself like some inspiration. I'm like, I told you, I was like, I'm not some business connoisseur. Like, I don't know how inflation's going to affect my business in 5 years. Like, I have no.
You're fine.
Okay, thank you. I'm like, I'll ask you those questions, but like, I don't consider myself to be some like inspiring person. It's literally just like, I'm a normal person, and if I can do this, then I promise you, you can do this.
Love it.
So
Love it. Thanks for coming on.
yeah,
Sincerely.
thanks.